My name is David. I grew up in a small town, a place where everyone knows each other and rumors spread like wildfire. It's a place where you'd think love would thrive, where relationships run deep and loyalty is a common virtue. I thought I found that loyalty with Laura, my wife of 5 years. She's charming, beautiful, and has a smile that lights up even the darkest days. We settled into a cozy home, nestled on the outskirts of town, surrounded by trees that dance with the wind, a picturesque setting that seemed perfect. Laura worked as a marketing executive in a company downtown. She was ambitious and driven, always climbing the corporate ladder. I admired her for that, but as the years passed, her late nights at work became more frequent. It started as an innocent excuse but turned into a consistent pattern. At first, I didn't think much of it. I trusted her completely. She often came home tired, but I told myself it was just the demands of her job. As for me, I was a freelance graphic designer. My work allowed me to be flexible, which meant I could help out around the house and manage our lives in a way that suited us both. I enjoyed the freedom of my work, but I often felt an underlying anxiety about our financial stability. Still, I believed that our love would outweigh any challenges we faced. It was during one of those late nights when I first noticed something odd. I received a text from Laura that was intended for someone else. It was a simple message, but the tone struck me as too intimate. "Can't wait to see you later. I miss you." At the time, I brushed it aside, convincing myself it was just a harmless slip. But deep down, a seed of doubt was planted. The weeks turned into months, and I started noticing little things, a change in her routine, new clothes, and a sudden interest in working out. She was becoming more secretive, and the late nights continued, often accompanied by vague excuses. I began to feel a gnawing suspicion, one that whispered in my ear at night when I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Late one evening, as I sat in our living room, the flicker of the television casting shadows around the room, I decided to confront her. I waited until she came home, hoping to catch her in a moment of honesty. "Laura, is everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light, but my heart raced. "Of course, why wouldn't it be?" she replied, her smile slightly faltering. In that instant, I realized I was not just fighting for the truth. I was fighting against the possibility of a reality I didn't want to accept. Days passed, and my suspicions grew heavier. I began to do my own digging. I checked her social media, discreetly observed her calls, and even followed her a couple of times after work. I wished I could bury my head in the sand and deny what was happening, but I was compelled by a strange mix of fear and determination. It was on a rainy Thursday evening that everything unraveled. I followed her to a swanky bar downtown, a place I'd never been, one that was far from our usual hangouts. I parked a block away, my heart pounding in my chest like a war drum. I watched as she laughed, her head thrown back in genuine delight, sharing a table with a man I didn't recognize. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him right away. He had a confident demeanor, leaning closer to her, a hand brushing her arm. I felt sick to my stomach as I watched them share drinks and intimate conversations, the kind that should only happen between a man and a woman in love. It was in that moment, under the glow of neon lights and the damp smell of rain-soaked pavement, that I knew for certain my wife was cheating on me. I felt betrayed, but more than that, I felt angry. A fire ignited inside me, one that demanded justice. I needed to figure out how to confront this betrayal, but more importantly, I needed to think about how to get my revenge. That night marked a turning point in my life. I realized I had two choices. I could walk away and let it go, or I could orchestrate a plan that would expose her for who she truly was. My mind churned with thoughts, and the wheels of revenge began to turn. The next few days were a haze of anger and confusion. I couldn't shake the image of Laura and that man from my mind. I had trusted her, implicitly given her everything, my heart, my loyalty, my life. And yet she was out there betraying me. I had to know more about her affair. I needed proof, something I could confront her with, something that would shake her to her core. I began to gather information. I spent hours on the internet searching for the man I had seen with Laura. I realized I'd seen him around town before, but I never knew his name. After some digging, I managed to find him, Mark Thompson. He was a successful entrepreneur, known for his charm and persuasive nature. He had a reputation for being quite the ladies' man, and the news of a few scandals followed him like a shadow. I discovered he worked closely with Laura's company, often collaborating on projects that required marketing expertise. This connection unnerved me. Were their late-night meetings purely professional, or was it just a cover for their illicit encounters? I felt a rush of adrenaline as I pieced together their connection. This was no mere coincidence. With each passing day, I watched Laura more closely. I took note of her movements, tracking her comings and goings. She had started coming home later and later, often with a new excuse that felt less and less believable. "Sorry, babe, I had to stay late to finish up the presentation," she would say, her voice almost too chipper. I couldn't help but feel as if she was performing for me, putting on a show to mask her guilt. Then, one Saturday afternoon, I decided to take action. Laura had told me she was going out for brunch with some friends. Instead of staying home as she expected, I followed her. I knew the route she often took and staked out a cafe a few blocks away from where she claimed she'd be. I parked my car and waited, feeling a mix of anxiety and determination. An hour passed, and just as I started to consider leaving, I spotted her walking down the street, but she wasn't alone. She was with Mark. They were engrossed in conversation, laughing like old friends. It stung to see her smile at him the way she used to smile at me. I couldn't hear their words, but their body language spoke volumes. Mark leaned in closer, and Laura, instead of pulling away, leaned in too, her laughter ringing out like a melody meant for him, not me. Seething, I stayed put. I watched as they entered another bar, one that I had once thought was too upscale for our taste. I felt like a voyeur peering into a world I was no longer part of. The feelings of betrayal morphed into a burning resolve. I needed to confront them to shatter this illusion once and for all. I considered confronting Laura right then and there, but I realized it would be more impactful to wait for the right moment. Instead, I devised a plan. I started gathering evidence. I took photos of them together, snapped pictures of their interactions, every laugh and every touch, capturing their intimate moments. I felt like a detective, methodically compiling a dossier of betrayal. I even spoke to some of Laura's coworkers, casually probing them about her relationship with Mark. The whispers confirmed what I feared. What had started as a professional relationship had developed into something more. As the days turned into weeks, the weight of my growing evidence felt heavy, but it also fueled my desire for revenge. I began to imagine how I would confront her, how I would lay out the truth like a card on the table. I wanted her to feel the same betrayal I felt, the gut-wrenching pain of realizing that the person you trusted the most was the one betraying you. I also started thinking about how I wanted to expose her. I didn't just want a confrontation. I wanted to turn the tables on her. I wanted her to feel the heat of her deception radiate back at her. I envisioned showing the photos to her family, friends, and anyone who would listen. I wanted to strip away the facade she had built, to reveal the truth about who she really was. The day finally arrived. I had gathered all my evidence and my heart raced with anticipation. I set up a meeting with Laura that evening. I told her I wanted to discuss something important, making sure my tone was calm, almost casual. I practiced my words in the mirror, rehearsing how I would present the evidence. I wanted to be strong, composed, and unwavering. As I prepared, I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I was ready to confront Laura, ready to unveil her deceit. The stage was set for the reckoning, and I felt a strange sense of exhilaration mixed with dread. In my mind, I was already imagining the look on her face when she realized I had caught her red-handed. The evening was finally upon me. I had set the stage for a confrontation I had rehearsed in my mind countless times. I could feel the tension in the air as I waited for Laura to come home. I prepared a simple dinner, hoping that a casual setting would help ease her into the conversation. My heart raced with anticipation. The moment of truth was drawing near. When Laura walked through the door, she greeted me with her usual smile, but there was an air of innocence about her that I found infuriating. "Hey babe, sorry I'm late. Work was crazy today," she chirped as she slipped off her shoes and hung her purse on the chair. "It's okay. I replied, my tone measured. I wanted to keep things calm, but inside my emotions were a storm ready to burst. I made your favorite. I figured we could enjoy a quiet evening together. Oh, you're the best, she said, her eyes lighting up as she walked into the kitchen. I watched her, trying to memorize every detail of her happiness, knowing it was about to be shattered. We sat down to eat and the conversation flowed easily. We talked about mundane things, the weather, her work, plans for the weekend. I maintained my composure, but every laugh she gave felt like a dagger to my heart. I could hardly swallow my food, but I forced myself to stay calm. I had to execute my plan flawlessly. After dinner, I suggested we move to the living room. Can we talk? There's something on my mind that I want to discuss. I felt my heart race as I said this. It was the moment I had been waiting for, but I could also feel the weight of dread settling in my stomach. Laura nodded, her expression shifting to one of concern. Sure, what's up? She settled on the couch, crossing her legs, and I mirrored her action, taking a deep breath as I prepared to reveal the truth. Laura, I started, my voice steady but stern. I need to know if there's something going on with you and Mark Thompson. Her eyes widened, a flicker of surprise crossing her face, but she quickly masked it with confusion. What do you mean? Mark, he's just a colleague, we work together. I leaned forward, the tension thickening the air around us. I'm not talking about work. I know you've been seeing him outside of the office. I paused, allowing my words to sink in. I've seen you with him, Laura. I have pictures. Panic washed over her features, and for the first time I saw a crack in her armor. David, you're not being fair. I don't know what you're talking about. Is that so? I pulled out my phone, flipping through the images I had captured. You look pretty comfortable with him here. I showed her the first photo, her laughing, her body leaning toward Mark as if she were sharing a secret meant only for him. Her face paled as she stared at the screen. David, I can explain. You can explain. What is there to explain? You're lying to me, Laura. You're betraying everything we built together. Tell me the truth. The volume of my voice rose, fueled by the mixture of hurt and anger. Okay, just give me a moment. She took a deep breath and her facade started to crumble. Yes, we've been spending time together, but it's not what you think. It's complicated. Complicated, I scoffed, the bitterness spilling over. Is that what you call it? You think it's complicated to cheat on your husband? She looked at me, tears welling in her eyes. I never intended for it to happen. It just did. Things have been rough between us and I felt lonely. Mark was there and he understood me. I didn't mean for it to go this far. My heart sank, her words piercing through me. The betrayal was suffocating and the anger within me simmered dangerously close to boiling over. I felt a rush of satisfaction knowing she was finally facing the truth, but it came with a bitter aftertaste. I wasn't done yet. I had my plan in motion and it required more than just a confrontation. Laura, you don't get to manipulate this situation. You've made your choices and now I'm going to make mine, I said, my voice low but firm. I pulled out a second image, this one showing them sharing a clandestine kiss outside the cafe. You think I'll let you walk away from this unscathed? I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you've done. David, please don't. It was a mistake. She pleaded, her voice rising in desperation. I can end it with him. Just give me a chance. I shook my head, feeling a dark satisfaction in her plea. She was finally facing the consequences of her actions, and I intended to make her feel it deeply. No, Laura, this isn't just about you anymore. You've crossed a line. I won't let you have your cake and eat it too. I'll do anything, David, just please. Her voice cracked and I could see the fear etched across her face. I had her right where I wanted her, but I wanted to make it clear that I wasn't just acting out of hurt. I was going to take deliberate steps to ensure she felt the depth of her betrayals. I envisioned the aftermath. Gossip in our small town, friends questioning her integrity, family turning their backs. It would be a reckoning she wouldn't forget. Tomorrow I'm going to tell everyone, I said, my voice cold. Your family, your friends, even your coworkers, they deserve to know the truth about you. I stood up, feeling a rush of power surge through me. You've lost the right to ask for my forgiveness. You've lost everything. I walked away, leaving her alone in the living room, her sobs echoing behind me. I felt a strange mix of triumph and sorrow. I had taken the first step in my plan, and it felt liberating, even if it came with the weight of heartbreak. The next day, I woke up with a mix of adrenaline and dread coursing through my veins. My heart raced as I prepared for the day ahead. I had made a decision that would irrevocably change everything, not just for Laura, but for me as well. I had to see it through. I spent the morning assembling my evidence, organizing the photos and messages into a neat folder that I could present to those I intended to confront. Each image felt like a dagger, evidence of her betrayal that I was ready to wield. First on my list was Laura's family. They had always welcomed me with open arms, treating me like one of their own. I had been at family dinners, holidays, and celebrations, and I could still hear her mother's laughter and her father's warm stories about their lives. I knew that showing them what Laura had done would shatter their perception of her. And perhaps that was the cruelest part of this revenge. I wouldn't just hurt Laura, I would also hurt those who loved her. I drove to her parents' house, my stomach in knots. The drive felt endless as I thought about how to deliver the news. Would they side with me? Would they understand the depth of her betrayal? I found myself rehearsing my words, but nothing could prepare me for the actual moment. When I arrived, I took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Laura's mother, Karen, opened it, her smile fading when she saw my somber expression. "David, is everything all right?" I hesitated, the weight of my decision heavy on my shoulders. "I need to talk to you and Tom. It's important. Please, can I come in?" Karen's brow furrowed in concern, but she stepped aside to let me in. "Of course, come in. What's going on?" I followed her into the living room where Laura's father, Tom, was sitting in his favorite chair, a newspaper in hand. He looked up with a warm smile, but it quickly faded as he sensed the tension in the room. "David, what's the matter?" "Thank you for letting me come," I said, my heart racing. I took a moment to gather my thoughts. "I need to talk to you about Laura and Mark Thompson." Their expressions shifted to confusion and concern. "What about them?" Karen asked, her voice laced with worry. I pulled out my folder, my hand trembling slightly. "I have something to show you." I began laying out the photos in front of them one by one, detailing the timeline of events. I watched as their faces transformed from confusion to shock and ultimately to disappointment. Karen gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "David, I can't believe it. Is this true?" Tom's expression hardened as he flipped through the images, the betrayal crystallizing on his face. "How long has this been going on?" "Months," I replied, my voice steady. "I've been watching, and I finally confronted her last night. This is the reality of your daughter's choices." Karen looked like she was about to cry, the disappointment flooding her eyes. "I can't believe this. Our Laura, how could she?" I felt a pang of guilt, but I pushed it aside. "I know this must be hard to hear, but she deserves to be held accountable for her actions, and so do you. You raised her to be trustworthy, and she's betrayed that trust." Tom nodded, his jaw clenched. "We need to talk to her. She needs to hear this from us." I stood, feeling a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. "I just thought you should know while there's still time. I plan to tell her friends and coworkers next. I want everyone to understand the truth about her." As I left their house, I felt a strange mix of victory and loss. I had begun to dismantle the life we had built together, brick by brick. Laura's world was about to come crashing down, and I would be the one holding the hammer. My next stop was Laura's workplace. I knew a few of her colleagues, people I had met at company events and parties. I had always been friendly with them, but today would be different. Today, they would see me as the scorned husband seeking justice. I walked into the office building, my heart pounding. It was mid-afternoon, and the buzz of conversations and ringing phones surrounded me. I spotted a familiar face, Sarah, one of Laura's closest friends. She was in the break room, pouring coffee into a mug. I approached her, trying to keep my demeanor calm. "Sarah, can we talk?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. She looked surprised but nodded. "Sure, what's up?" I gestured for her to sit down at a nearby table. "I need to tell you something about Laura, something important." Her expression shifted to concern, and I pulled out my folder again, laying out the evidence in front of her just as I had done with Laura's parents. I watched as shock registered on her face, the disbelief morphing into horror as she processed the images. "Oh my God, David, I can't believe it." "Laura," she shook her head in disbelief. "This can't be real." "It is," I said, my tone unyielding. "I want you to know what she's done. I'm going to tell everyone. I want the truth out there." Her eyes widened and I could see the gears turning in her mind. "But have you talked to her? Maybe she can explain." "There's no explanation for this," I replied firmly. "She made her choices and now she'll face the consequences. It's not just about her anymore, it's about everyone she's deceived." As I left the office building, I felt a rush of adrenaline. The plan was working, and with each revelation, I felt more powerful. I was dismantling the life she had built and exposing the lies for everyone to see. Each person I confronted was another step toward revenge, another moment that would leave its mark on Laura. But as the day unfolded, I couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that accompanied each act of vengeance. Was I doing the right thing? Part of me felt justified in exposing her, but another part wondered if I was losing a piece of myself in the process. Revenge was consuming me, and I had to be careful not to let it swallow me whole. That night, I returned home, feeling the weight of the day settle over me like a heavy cloak. I sat in the living room, surrounded by memories of the life we had shared, the laughter, the love, the dreams for the future. It all felt like a distant memory now, overshadowed by the betrayal. I was ready for her to come home and face the fallout. I was ready to watch her entire world crumble around her, but I couldn't shake the feeling of loss that accompanied my quest for revenge. The following morning, I woke early, the tension of the past couple of days still swirling in my mind. I had set into motion a series of events that would change everything, and now I was left to confront the aftermath. I could hardly eat or focus on anything as I waited for Laura to come home. I longed for the confrontation that was brewing, but I also felt a pang of dread. I was about to shatter her world, and I knew that would come with its own set of consequences. When Laura finally returned home, the clock had already ticked past 9. I could hear her footsteps in the hallway, and the moment she stepped through the door, I could feel the tension crackling in the air like static electricity. She looked tired, her hair slightly disheveled, and I could tell that she had been caught off guard by the events of the previous days. "David, we need to talk," she said, her voice shaky. I could see a hint of fear in her eyes, and I knew that she had sensed the storm brewing. "Do we?" I replied, my tone cold, matching the icy grip I felt in my chest. "I think we already did." Her expression shifted, confusion and worry crossing her features. "What do you mean?" "Your family knows about you and Mark. I told them everything," I said flatly. "And your coworkers too." Sarah was devastated. "Everyone deserves to know the truth." A flicker of panic crossed her face and I felt a surge of satisfaction at her reaction. "David, you can't just do this. You're ruining everything. This isn't the way to handle it, isn't it?" I challenged, my voice rising. "You made your choices, Laura. You decided to betray me, to betray us. This is the consequence of that decision. You thought you could have it all without anyone finding out. What do you want from me?" she shouted, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you. Just what?" I interrupted, my anger boiling. "Just wanted to be with him. You wanted the thrill and excitement without caring who you hurt in the process." Tears began to spill down her cheeks, and for a moment I almost felt a hint of remorse. But it was quickly overshadowed by the raw pain I felt. "Think you can just expose me and everything will be fine? You're tearing apart our lives, David." "I'm tearing apart the lie you've built," I shot back. "You don't get to manipulate me anymore. You don't get to play the victim here." Her shoulders slumped and she looked defeated. "What do you want then? Do you want me to beg for your forgiveness, to say I'm sorry? I'll do anything to fix this." I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts as I watched her lament. "It's too late for that. You betrayed my trust, and I can't just forget it. You need to face the consequences of your actions." Laura suddenly rushed toward me, desperation in her eyes. "Please, David, don't do this. I'll end things with Mark. Just give me a chance to make things right." "Right," I scoffed. "You think you can make this right? You've shattered what we had, Laura. I don't believe a word you say anymore." As I stood there, I realized how much I had changed in such a short time. I had gone from a loving husband to a man consumed by revenge, and in the depths of my sorrow I had begun to enjoy it. I wanted her to feel the despair that I felt, the sense of betrayal that had turned my world upside down. After a moment of silence, I spoke again, my voice quieter but still resolute. "I'm going to file for divorce. I don't want to be tied to you anymore. I can't keep living in a lie." Laura's face crumpled and she sank to the floor, sobbing. "Please, David, don't leave me. I love you. I didn't mean for it to happen like this." Love, the word felt hollow now. Distant memory tainted by deceit. I could hardly remember a time when I felt that warmth for her. "You love the idea of me, Laura. The perfect husband that you kept while you played games behind my back. But you don't love me, not if you could betray me so easily." I turned away from her, feeling a mixture of anger and heartbreak. I needed to go through with my plan to ensure that everyone knew the truth. But as I walked away, I felt the weight of the decision settling heavily on my shoulders. This was a path of destruction, and I was the one wielding the sword. In the days that followed, I executed my plan without hesitation. I reached out to more of Laura's friends, shared the evidence with them, and watched as the whispers of betrayal spread throughout our community. Her coworkers were stunned, the gossip rippling like a stone thrown into a calm pond. I could see the shock on their faces as they confronted her about her infidelity. Laura tried to salvage her reputation, but the damage was done. She lost the support of friends and family who had once stood by her. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction as I watched her crumble under the pressure of her choices. I had taken control back, but the triumph felt bittersweet. One afternoon, I received a call from Laura's mother. "David, can we meet? I need to talk to you about Laura." I hesitated but agreed. I had already devastated her family. There was little more damage I could do. When I arrived at the cafe where we agreed to meet, Karen looked tired and worn. Her eyes held a mix of disappointment and concern, and I felt a twinge of guilt. "Thank you for coming," she said as we settled at a table. "I wanted to talk about what's been happening with Laura." "I'm sorry for what she's put you through," I offered, my voice sincere. "This isn't the life I wanted for any of us." "I appreciate that," Karen replied, her voice heavy. "But I need to ask you, are you sure you want to go through with this? I know Laura made a terrible mistake, but she's still my daughter. I believe she can change." I felt a mix of sympathy and frustration. "I get that you love her and I understand that you want to protect her, but I can't just sweep this under the rug. She hurt me deeply and the trust is gone." "I know," she said, tears forming in her eyes, "but people make mistakes. Sometimes the hardest thing is forgiving someone and giving them a chance to redeem themselves." "Redemption?" I scoffed. "She's had her chances. How many times can someone betray someone they claim to love?" Karen took a deep breath, looking more composed. "I can't make the decision for you, David, but I hope you'll think long and hard before you take that final step. Breaking her will hurt her, yes, but it will hurt you too. You'll carry that weight." Her words lingered in the air, resonating with something deep within me. I had been so consumed by revenge that I hadn't fully considered the consequences of my actions on my own soul. Yes, I wanted justice, but at what cost? Was I willing to sacrifice my integrity and my peace of mind just to prove a point? As I left the cafe, I felt a shift within me, a crack in the armor I had built around my heart. The path of revenge was intoxicating, but it also felt like a poison that was slowly seeping into my being. I had to find a way to regain control without losing myself in the process. That night, I sat alone in the living room, the shadows of our past flickering on the walls like ghosts. I felt torn between the desire to punish Laura and the need to find a way to move on without the weight of anger dragging me down. I couldn't let her define my life, not anymore. And so I made a decision. It was time to confront not just Laura, but also myself. I would tell her that I was filing for divorce, but I would also let her know that I no longer wished to dwell in the darkness of revenge. I wanted to reclaim my life, to move forward with clarity rather than resentment. The decision to confront Laura had settled heavily in my mind, and though it felt daunting, I knew it was necessary. I took a deep breath and began to think about how I would approach this conversation. I wanted to do it in a way that would bring closure, not just for her, but for me as well. That evening when Laura came home, the air felt charged with unspoken words. I found her sitting in the living room, her eyes red from crying. She looked like a shadow of the woman I had once loved. I could see the weight of her actions pressing down on her, and for a brief moment, a flicker of sympathy washed over me. But I quickly reminded myself of the pain she had caused. "David," she said, her voice cracking, "I can't believe this is happening. I never wanted it to go this far. I nodded, wanting to keep my response calm. I know you didn't, Laura, but it has. We can't go back to how things were. Trust has been broken. We both know that. I can change, she pleaded. I can be better. Just give me another chance. I shook my head. This isn't just about giving you another chance. It's about me too. I can't keep living in a situation where I'm constantly questioning your loyalty. I need to take care of myself now. Are you really going to just walk away? She asked, her eyes wide with disbelief. After everything we've been through, I felt a pang of sorrow at her words, a reminder of the good times we had shared, but those memories were now tainted by her actions. I have to. I can't stay in a relationship built on lies. I'm filing for divorce. The silence that followed felt deafening. I could see the realization settle in, the truth hitting her like a tidal wave. David, please, she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'm begging you, I will do anything. I'll go to therapy, I'll work on myself, just don't leave me. As I looked at her, I felt a mixture of anger and sadness. This wasn't the woman I had married. She was a stranger now, and I had to remind myself of the reality. Laura, this isn't just about the affair. It's everything that led to it, the distance, the secrets, the lack of communication. We've lost ourselves along the way. Then let's find a way back. We can rebuild what we had, she urged, her voice shaking as she reached for my hand. I pulled away, the finality of my decision weighing heavily on both of us. I've made my choice, and it's for the best, I said softly, trying to quell the storm of emotions within me. I need to move forward, and I can't do that while I'm tied to you. Her body trembled as she sat back, a mixture of defeat and heartbreak in her expression. I never wanted to hurt you, David. It was a mistake. Maybe, I replied, my voice steady. But mistakes have consequences. I can't keep pretending that everything is fine when it's not. I deserve better, and so do you. In that moment, I realized that this wasn't just a farewell. It was an acknowledgement of our shared past and the painful choices that had led us to this point. I felt a sense of closure beginning to wash over me, even as I prepared to walk away from the life we had built together. As I stood to leave, Laura reached out again, her voice breaking. I wish things had been different. I wish I could take it all back. I paused at the door, looking back at her one last time. So do I, but wishing won't change what happened. We both need to heal, and that starts with letting go. With that, I stepped out of the house, the door closing behind me like the final chapter of a book. It was a bittersweet moment, filled with both sorrow and relief. The storm of emotions that had consumed me for so long began to settle, leaving behind a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in months. As I moved forward, I thought about the journey I had taken. Revenge had felt like a powerful tool, and while it had provided temporary satisfaction, it hadn't brought me peace. In the end, it was about reclaiming my own life, about choosing to prioritize my happiness over the lingering darkness of betrayal. In the weeks that followed, I filed for divorce and began to focus on my own healing. I sought therapy to process the pain, to understand why I had been so consumed by anger. I started to rediscover parts of myself that had been buried under the weight of betrayal. I began to explore new hobbies, reconnect with friends, and find solace in the little moments that brought me joy. Though the scars of betrayal would remain, I knew I had the power to move on. I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means freeing myself from the chains of resentment. I found strength in letting go, realizing that my past didn't have to define my future. Months later, as I sat on the porch of my new apartment, I felt a sense of peace settle within me. The sun set over the horizon, casting a warm glow that reminded me that life continues, even after the darkest storms. I felt grateful for the lessons learned and the strength I had found within myself. Laura would always be a part of my story, but she no longer had the power to dictate my happiness. I was ready to embrace the future, open to new possibilities and experiences. It was time to heal, to love myself, and to move forward with a heart that was stronger than ever. And in that moment, I knew I was finally free.